Welcome back to the Lines College Football Podcast. I'm Brett Gibbons with TheLines.com, breaking down some weeknight college football action this Thursday and Friday. Before we get into it all, don't forget to follow The Lines on Twitter at TheLinesUS, and I am at Road to CFB. I will be here every single week breaking down the weeknight college football slate. Check out my other weekly college football handicapping tools that I'm posting at TheLines.com, like a weekly cheat sheet, weather report, upset alerts, whole lot more. And be sure to check out our full lineup of shows, including the Lions Monster Pod, featuring Steven Andrus, Matt Brown, and more. But let's dive right into a terrific weeknight slate. First up, we have South Alabama at Appalachian State. The Mountaineers are 7-point home favorites here, and the over-under is posted at time of recording at 63.5 points. Kicks off 7:30 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. Now, the Mountaineers have won the last 4 meetings, but this is not an annual cross-division meeting, so they're few and far between, a little bit sparse. South Alabama actually took some movement, little bit of movement, midweek. They are down from their plus 7.5 at open. Those got bought up, and now you're offered plus 7. You can still find the plus 7.5 as of Wednesday time recording here, but just know that they are trending in that direction. It's not an insignificant move either. About 14% of all college football games end on 7. That is the second most important number, key figure as we call them here with football betting. Now, forecasts, I know we're a day out, but forecasts are calling for rain, potential thunderstorms, kind of a toss-up here. There's no real wind impacts there. My main focus here would be like lightning and the game getting delayed, which we've seen a few times on these midweek games. Now, guys, we all saw what South Alabama did last week to Northwestern State. They dropped 87 points. That's the most in the FBS since 1991. That's a pretty long time here. Now, they played shortened quarters and then ended up in a whole betting mess. I get it. If you're holding a ticket and it got scratched, a winning ticket, I should say, and it got scratched due to the game not going long enough, I get your frustration there. Now, it sounds silly, but I take almost no stake in that game. Northwestern State is one of the worst teams in the FCS, and especially in college, when things get out of hand, they can get really out of hand, and those kind of problems, especially at that level, tend to snowball. Now, the Jaguars, they do run the ball fairly well. They have 2 running backs, Bothwell, Bullock, who are both tough runners, lots of yards after contact, pretty decent tandem back there. The problem is, South Alabama's defense is atrocious, especially against the pass. They're near the bottom of the FCS in drop-back EPA allowed. And on the other side, they're playing Joey Aguilar, who's one of the better quarterbacks, in my opinion, in the whole country. He threw for over 400 yards on a pretty good Eastern Carolina secondary just last week. Now, I'm wondering what this line would look like, and I like doing this exercise, if South Alabama did not publicly post 87 points last week. Like, if it was like a 59-7 win, or you still a big blowout, but not record-setting, and like all the eyes on social media were on South Alabama last week. It got a lot of attention. I think this line would probably be higher if we didn't see that kind of historic annihilation, again, of a very, very bad football team. So for me, this is App State minus 7 at home. I'm only taking on 7. If you can only find 7.5, I'm not suggesting to take App State there. But if you can get the 7, even if it moves a little bit, 6.5, which kind of doubt, I'm definitely taking App State with the points there. Aguilar should be able to move the ball through the air. I think App State's a step up in class from both North Texas and Ohio, and of course Northwestern State, that South Alabama has already taken on. Moving forward to Friday night, we have Stanford at Syracuse. Syracuse is an 8.5-point home favorite, and the over-under here is 57.5 points. It kicks off at 7:30 p.m. Eastern, of course, on Friday on ESPN. This is Stanford's first ACC game and also the first meeting between these two teams. And of course, Stanford's being thrown to the fire because they are playing in the vaunted JMA Wireless Dome. Now, I use vaunted a little loosely, but it is a weird place to play a game, and some weird things have happened up there in northern New York. Both teams come off a bye week here, so they're both well rested. They're in fairly good health. We don't have any major injuries to report here. And Syracuse, 2-0 against the spread against the opening number, but just 1-1 against the closing. They beat Ohio by 16 points, and that line closed at 17. Stanford is 2-0 against the spread versus the closing number. Now, if we're looking at Stanford, the quarterback, Ashton Daniels, he's a fun watch. I like him. He has opportunities on the ground against the Syracuse defense. That Syracuse defense actually allowed 67 yards on 6 rushes and a pair of touchdowns to Haynes King and Georgia Tech the last time that they suited up and played football. And overall, the Orange are 100th in rush EPA allowed on the season. Small sample size, but not a great output against the run so far. Now, outside of Daniels, no Stanford player has really got it going. Their lead back is 3.4 a carry. Another back is like 4.1 a carry. It's not a great rushing attack. And you know why? Stanford offensive line, still not very good. And they're going up against a guy named Fadil Diggs, who transferred in from Texas A&M. He's one of the best pass rushers in the ACC and one of the top graded, honestly, right now in the nation through a couple of games. So Daniels can't take so long in the pocket. He likes to stand there and make something happen. I get it. But sometimes you got to throw the ball away or take off and go. His average time to throw is 3.1 seconds, one of the higher in the ACC so far. Now, the Cardinal defense, still not very good. Wasn't very good last year, isn't very good again this year so far. They're 99th in net EPA. And Kyle McCord, he started the year off strong, so he has an opportunity against a porous defense that really couldn't do a whole lot to stop TCU, of course, losing late in that game. Syracuse, their defense defends what Stanford does well, and that is through the air. Now, they're forcing Stanford to do what they don't do well, and that's run. So I'm not picking Stanford an upset pick here to win. But look, my play here is if college football player props are available in your state, I know they're not available everywhere and becoming increasingly less available. But I'm taking over Ashton Daniels' rushing prop, which is listed at just 33.5 yards. He's probably going to get it done on the ground in this game. All right, our ranked matchup of the weeknight slate, we have number 24, Illinois, at number 22, Nebraska. The Huskers are 7.5-point home favorites, and the over-under sits at just 43 points. It kicks off 8 p.m. Eastern Friday night on Fox. Illinois, it took some midweek action, actually, down from plus 8.5 at open. Of course, it's a low total game. That, of course, leads to picking the underdog. I get it there. Pretty sound movement. Now, Nebraska halted a 3-game losing streak to Illinois last year, and they held Illinois to 21 yards on 19 carries on the ground. 1.1 per carry if you're doing the math there at home. With the slow total, it's a result of a lot of things, of course. I mean, you could just look at the logos and say, well, yeah, these are defense-oriented, run-oriented teams, and you'd be correct. But they have a middling pace of play, and they have been fairly run-oriented, both over 55% so far on the year. Nebraska has successfully run the ball. They're 13th in rush EPA. Illinois, less so. They're 91st in rushing EPA, 3.4 yards per carry, as a team against FBS foes. And we're talking Kansas and Central Michigan. Those aren't exactly the stoutest run defenses you're going to find here in the country, and certainly not as good as Nebraska's run defense. And that's kind of the focus here, right, is the impressive defenses. The one flaw that I see on the board is that Illinois, they have not defended the run very well, and I know they went up against Kansas, a very strong rushing attack. But look, they also went against Central Michigan, and the Chips outrushed Illinois. Illinois won 30-9, but they were outrushed. And Central Michigan is not a very good football team, and their running back is actually got banged up in that game. So I see these two teams very differently. I think there's a team here that I believe is really solid in Nebraska, and a team that kind of benefited from being ranked because they beat a ranked Kansas team before we kind of realized Kansas might not be very good, guys. So I don't know that Illinois is all that they are cracked up to be with a number. And I know it's early in the season. A lot of people take issue with early season rankings. I'm one of them. And I'm going to take advantage of the number being in front of Illinois here because I don't think that they're as good as that ranking might say. So, even with the low total already, I can find 43.5 on the board here. Wednesday while we're recording, I'm taking under 43.5 points. I just don't think Illinois is going to be able to score here. I don't like taking the hook with Nebraska, especially going against that line movement, but I think that this game is going to look pretty close to the Colorado game, despite Illinois and Colorado being very different teams. Something ballpark like 28-7, 24-10, that kind of game. I'm not sure we're going to get out of the 30s here. Illinois, they're better on the line than Colorado, but the Buffs are really unable to do very much offensively with a vastly better quarterback and much better weapons. So, you can. I like saying this about these guys. You can always take these teams out of the Big Ten West. They've taken them out of the Big Ten West, but you'll never take the Big Ten West out of these teams. And finally, on Friday night at 10 p.m. on the CW, get your TVs tuned to the right station here to catch this one. We got San Jose State at Washington State. Wazoo is an 11.5-point home favorite here, and it has an over-under 56 points. Now, there's been a lot of movement on San Jose State, and I totally get it. They opened at plus 14.5. That's a number I would have loved to have in pocket if I was quick enough to the window there. But again, now we're all the way down to 11.5. So the best number's gone. And that's really important to note right off the bat, because San Jose State, your opportunity to back Spartans is probably gone, because you shouldn't be betting the worst of the number. And I can't get involved with San Jose State now that it's not at that 14.5, 3 points movement. I'm just not betting against that market there. So, but this is a really good spot for San Jose State. They get the Cougars in a big letdown and a look-ahead spot, and I know some people don't believe in that, and they don't like betting situational college football, and that's fine. Everyone goes about differently. I like betting situational college football because these are college kids, and it absolutely does matter on them. Wazoo, they're coming off a big emotional win over rival Washington. Washington left the quote-unquote little brother behind, and we thought that this Apple Cup may have been lost to history, but they did revive it, and Washington State beat them. And then next up for Washington State, Boise State. Great team. Ashton Ginty on the horizon here. That's a game that Wazoo needs to get up for. They could get ran right over. And San Jose State's head coach, Ken Niumatalolo, he's done some pretty good stuff in San Jose so far. The Spartans have been just terrific against the run. And I do think that comes with Niumatalolo's intimate knowledge of the option and being able to defend the run in a multitude of ways. They actually held Air Force to 143 rushing yards. That's Air Force's lowest rushing output against a non-service academy opponent since 2014. So San Jose State's rushing defense, pretty good. I understand Air Force is not as good as they have been in years past. But I do think that they present a good counter to Washington State's run game. And even though we thought of Washington State as this high-flying air raid offense, they do like to run the football this year, and they're pretty darn good at it. However, this is a step up here for San Jose State, of course. Washington State's the best team that they've played so far in the season. Quarterback John Mateer, he rushed for over 200 yards against Texas Tech. Pretty good. I like him a lot. We're kind of saying, who's this John Mateer guy? Pretty solid, turns out, especially with his legs. And Washington State has a tackle. I'm not going to try to pronounce his name here, but Fa'amo is the last name there. He was supposed to return from injury last week. He's a starting right tackle. He tore his ACL last year. He was supposed to return last week. Did not against Washington. But I like to see him maybe come back this week because he was probable, again, said supposed to return last week, even though he didn't. I like him to get back this week. Big boost to the Washington State offensive line there. And Washington State is also without starting corner Jamari Colson. He's probably out for a while. So I'm looking at Nick Nash, the wide receiver from San Jose State. He's been terrific. 485 yards and 6 touchdowns already on the season. He's the clear alpha there. They know how to get him the ball, and he's an absolute stud. So I think he's going to continue to produce in this game. I like San Jose State to match up pretty well against a run, and they run a good tempo themselves. They're 21st in plays per minute. Wazoo is 20th. But again, the best of the number on San Jose State is gone. This is a great spot for them. But if you're looking to back in an alternative way, I'd actually probably take under 56 points if they can counter that Washington State run game and kind of grind them down to a halt. Otherwise, if you're looking to back Washington State, half the people listening are probably like, I like Washington State. They're a pretty good team. I'd probably wait. The best of the number maybe coming. If you can even, it's moved 3 points already. If you can get it down to 10 and you want to play back on that, I think that's a pretty solid play. So that's how I am diagnosing San Jose State at Washington State here. But hop on over to our Discord server where you can connect with over 4,000 sports betting fans, get live updates in our college football channel, and join a sharp and very active community, especially this year where in mid-September football is in full swing. And don't forget to subscribe to the Lines YouTube for weekly college football odds and betting videos all season long. And subscribe to us on your podcasting app of choice, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, whatever you're using these days. And drop us a good review if you liked this breakdown here. But thank you so much, as always, for watching. I'm Brett Gibbons. We'll see you next time.